What is fatigue? Really? And why it doesn't go away. What is fatigue? Most people think it's simple. They call it tiredness, lack of sleep, too much work, something that should disappear after rest. But real fatigue doesn't work that way. You can sleep enough and still wake up exhausted. You can stop doing things and still feel drained. You can rest and feel no relief. Because fatigue is not just a lack of energy, it's a signal. A signal that your body and nervous system have been living in a mode they can no longer maintain. Fatigue appears when demands have exceeded your capacity for too long. Not today, not yesterday, but over time. That's why it doesn't go away quickly. We often confuse fatigue with laziness. When someone says, "I'm tired," they're told to push harder or try more. But fatigue is not a lack of willpower, it's the result of overuse. We don't tell a broken bone to try harder, but when exhaustion is mental or emotional, we expect ourselves to keep functioning. Fatigue is what happens when the system has been compensating for too long. Most modern fatigue is not physical, it's nervous system fatigue, cognitive fatigue, emotional fatigue, the kind that doesn't show on the outside but slowly empties you from within. One of the biggest causes is constant alertness. Even when resting, the mind stays active, checking, comparing, anticipating. The brain rarely receives a clear signal that it's safe to stop, so the nervous system stays slightly activated, not in panic, but in constant readiness, and that drains energy faster than physical effort. Another major source of fatigue is suppressed emotion. Anger postponed, sadness minimized, fear ignored. We tell ourselves it's fine and move on, but emotions don't disappear. They stay in the body. Unexpressed emotion becomes tension. Tension becomes exhaustion. That's why fatigue can appear without a clear reason. The body remembers what the mind avoids. Fatigue also comes from constant self-control. Holding yourself together, choosing the right reactions, managing impressions. This inner effort is invisible, but it's expensive. You may not be lifting weight, but you're constantly carrying yourself. Over time, that weight becomes heavy. Another hidden source of fatigue is productivity pressure. Rest becomes something to earn. Relaxation needs a purpose. If rest is only allowed to improve performance, the nervous system never fully relaxes. True rest has no goal, and many people have forgotten how to rest without guilt. That's why sleep alone doesn't always help. Sleep restores the body, but fatigue often lives in the nervous system. If you fall asleep tense, recovery stays shallow. Fatigue is not always about sleep, it's about safety. The nervous system recovers when it feels safe enough to let go. Fatigue can also come from inner conflict, when you live against your limits, when you ignore your signals. The body slows you down because it has no other way to make you listen. Many try to fix fatigue by changing external things. Sometimes it works, often it doesn't, because fatigue is usually not about circumstances but about how you treat yourself, how much pressure you apply, how often you override your needs. Fatigue doesn't always look dramatic. It can look like boredom, procrastination, lack of motivation, but underneath there is exhaustion. Not because you don't care, but because you've cared for too long without rest. So how do you work with fatigue? Not by fighting it, not by forcing motivation. Fatigue doesn't respond to pressure, it responds to safety. The first step is noticing. I feel tired, without judgment, without blame. The body softens when it feels acknowledged. The second step is reconnecting with the body. Notice your breath, notice tension. Let the exhale be slightly longer than the inhale. This tells the nervous system you're safe. Small signals matter. The third step is reducing unnecessary demands. Not everything needs to be solved. Not everything needs improvement. Lower the bar temporarily, not forever, just long enough to allow recovery. Rest without purpose matters. Not resting to recharge, not resting to perform better. Resting because you're human. At first, this kind of rest feels uncomfortable, but it's the kind that truly restores. Fatigue eases when emotions are allowed. Not fixed, not analyzed, just felt. A few honest moments can release more energy than hours of distraction. Fatigue doesn't disappear instantly. It comes and goes in waves. That doesn't mean failure, it means recalibration. When you stop seeing fatigue as an enemy and start seeing it as information, it softens. Fatigue tells you where you've been pushing too hard and ignoring yourself. It's not here to punish you, it's here to protect you. When fatigue is respected, energy returns quietly, not as adrenaline, not as forced motivation, but as something steady and sustainable. If you feel tired even when doing nothing, you're not broken. Your system has simply been working in survival mode for too long. Fatigue is not the end, it's a message, and when you listen, recovery begins.